From WFRB TV Local 5, your local election headquarters, this is Newsmaker Sunday with your host, Tom Zalaski.
Good morning. Welcome to Newsmaker Sunday. I'm Tom Zalaski. Today we focus on state politics. And joining us is Wisconsin Representative Amanda Stuck from Appleton. The wife and mother of four, is an Appleton native, first elected to the Assembly in 2014. She is a graduate of UW-Oshkosh and worked as a rural mail carrier before entering politics. Representative Stuck is a founder and co-chair of a bipartisan group of young state legislators called Wisconsin's Future Caucus. And Amanda Stuck joins us this morning for Newsmaker Sunday. We thank you so much for joining us today. Last time you were in this studio, it was a much different capacity you were serving in. You were our celebrity sportscaster. How did you enjoy that experience? What was that like for you, since you're used to being in political chambers and not in a TV studio?
It was definitely an experience, but I honestly had so much fun. I was joking earlier that Burke made a comment about people think we just sit around eating and watching sports, and then I had to laugh because pretty much what we did was eat and watch sports, so it was a lot of fun.
That's why Burke likes this job so much, exactly. During that time that you visited our studio, you and I had an off-camera conversation, and you said, in a couple of months, you may have an announcement. And I said, well, when you want to make that announcement, I'd love to have you on the show. And here we are, on the show for that announcement. What was it that you've been holding on to?
Well, I'm so excited to be here with you today to announce that I have decided that I will be running for Congress in the 8th Congressional District. So I'm going to throw my hat in the ring and make a run for this seat and hopefully be able to represent the people of Northeast Wisconsin in Washington.
What was the trigger? What made you decide?
Well, so the biggest thing is actually the fact that I'm a mom, as you mentioned before. And as a mom, I know that families like mine don't have time to wait anymore for action in Washington. We continue to see gridlock. We continue to see politicians who are serving their own needs, who are putting party politics above the people here in Northeast Wisconsin. And as a mom, I watch my kids every day. I watch what's happening to their education. And I know we don't have time to wait and play games in Washington to address education. As a mom, when I'm bringing my kids to the doctor and working our way through healthcare and watching other families struggle with healthcare here in Northeast Wisconsin, I know families like mine don't have time to wait for action in Washington. When I watch my husband go off to work at his union job as a sheet metal journeyman every day, a hard, dirty, dangerous job, and I see how we still have faced times where we face layoffs and wonder how we're going to make it through, or even when he's working, sometimes still struggle to make ends meet. But I know families like mine don't have time to wait anymore. And so that is the final straw for me, that we need more people like me in Washington who know what the families are really going through here in Northeast Wisconsin.
It's a big step you're taking. What would be your first priority if you were elected?
Well, I think the first priority really is just getting someone like me in Washington. Again, someone who doesn't come from a wealthy background, somebody who's not out there just to advance my own interests or a special interest, but somebody who really just has a background like mine, a working class background. Again, 19 years ago, I was a single mom struggling to put myself through school. My husband's a sheet metal journeyman. There aren't a lot of families like that in Washington. A lot of Washington is wealthy, privileged people who come from wealthy backgrounds. So we need more people like me truly being representatives in Washington. Second thing is that it's really about listening and having a representative that's here in the district. Right now, we see too many representatives who just want to spend their time in Washington playing politics, who aren't really in their district listening to their people, making themselves available to the people here. So the biggest thing is to really be here, living and working like I already am now in the district, and being with the people in the district to listen to them and hear what they're facing every day and what Washington needs to do about it.
Now, as we speak at this date, it would appear that you would be running against incumbent Mike Gallagher.
Yes.
What would be the difference in your campaign versus his campaign?
Well, I mean, in terms of campaigns, again, to me, it's really about being here in the district. Mike Gallagher did not hold any town halls his first session in Congress. He is not here. He is in Washington. He has written articles about how they need to spend more time in Washington as representatives. So for me, it will really be about being here in the district on the ground with the people and really listening and understanding what they're facing every day. But more so, it's not even so much about the campaign as it is about how you actually represent and care for the people that you represent. So I had a gentleman named Len who wrote me a letter recently who talked about his wife who had just survived breast cancer. Now, they were coming off COBRA insurance and trying to figure out how they were going to get insurance coverage. And they were looking on the exchange, trying to find some coverage, and it was incredibly expensive, even on the exchange right now for them. And as they see what's happening in Washington, as we are facing the risk of possibly losing the Affordable Care Act and protections for people with pre-existing conditions, he had written Mike Gallagher and myself as his representatives to say, I'm really scared. If these protections go away for pre-existing conditions, I don't know what we'll do. There's no way we'll be able to afford insurance. We're a few years away from Medicare. There's no way we can afford insurance without those protections. And then he told me Mike Gallagher never bothered to respond to that letter. Never called, never wrote, never responded. And I think that's a stark difference in terms of how I would represent people here and how Mike Gallagher is. I'm actually here with the people, responding, calling them back, making sure that they know they're heard and hearing these stories, and we'll make sure that those stories get heard in Washington and get acted on.
Right now, the Democrats are in control of Congress in Washington. A new breed, so to speak, was elected during the midterms. There's the new breed, and then there's the old guard of Nancy Pelosi. If elected, where would you be in that body of 435? On which side within the party would you be?
Well, I mean, first of all, I would say I'm not focused on the party politics. I'm not interested in that right now. To me, it's really about the people here and what they're facing every day. You know, I'm not focused on playing games there and what's happening within the party there. I'm really more focused on what the people here are facing every day. What I will tell you, though, is how I've tried to represent my district in the state assembly is to be somebody who really wants to work with anybody who wants to work together. As you mentioned, I helped form the Future Caucus, which is one of only 2 bipartisan caucuses in the state assembly. And I would hope to do the same thing at the federal level, to really be about working across the aisle, about trying to find solutions, about, again, not making it be about party politics, but really about what's good for the people here.
I mentioned earlier that there was a new wave that came in, especially women in Congress during the midterms. Are you kind of hitching your wagon to the fact that maybe that wave is going to continue into the general election in 2020?
Well, I mean, I think certainly there's enthusiasm for women candidates out there. You know, I don't think anybody should vote for me or that I should run just because I'm a woman. But what I will say is that as a mother of 2 daughters, it really means a lot to me to see, or for them to see a woman running in this seat. A woman has never, ever held the 8th Congressional District seat. And as we're celebrating in Wisconsin being the first state to give women the right to vote 100 years ago, I think it matters that we think about what does representation look like, and is it time that a woman gets a chance at this seat so that daughters like mine can see women holding seats like this.
And you're no stranger to this seat, are you? You were in Steve Kagan's office. You worked for Steve Kagan. Tell us about that. When was it? What did you do?
So, I mean, to me, that's a really full circle moment for me to be running for this seat. Because, to be honest, I started out as just a volunteer on Steve Kagan's campaign. I was in college. I was just looking to volunteer somewhere, maybe get some more experience in politics because I was interested in policy. And you know, so again, I just started out as a volunteer and worked my way up to eventually becoming a staff person in the district. I will tell you, when I first applied even just to be a volunteer on the campaign, at that time I thought, well, I'm a single mom. I don't know. Do they let single moms volunteer on campaigns? I wasn't sure, to be honest, because that's sort of the feeling as you get as a single mom that, you know, you kind of get this message all the time that you're not good enough and you might not be able to achieve your dreams. But eventually I did work really hard and proved myself in that office and worked my way up into being a full-time staff person, and then eventually got elected to this office. And so now to be running for this seat is really meaningful to me, to have seen that evolution. And because I know the district. I've worked in this district, lived in this district my entire life, raised my family here. I know this district and I love this district and I care about the people here.
As for what's going on in Washington right now, people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and some of the new wave calling for the impeachment of President Trump, whereas Nancy Pelosi, also a Democrat, essentially telling them, let's back off, kids. She takes a different approach. Where do you stand on that?
Well, I mean, I think it's always important that we do take accusations seriously and do investigate concerns that might be out there of any illegal activity that has been done. But again, I'm not focused on those politics, and I'm not hearing that from people in my district that that's their #1 concern. They're more worried about how they're going to pay off their student debt. They're more worried about why they're working 4 jobs and are still struggling to get ahead. You know, they're more worried about their kids' education or being able to afford their medicine. So that's, again, what I really want to focus on, and not necessarily some of this other talk and chatter that happens around that.
We continue with Representative Amanda Stuck right after this, so please stay with us.